Today, the Secretary of Defense testified to Congress for the first time since his boss started a war with no stated purpose, no strategy, and no clear endgame 58 days ago. And during that testimony in front of the House Armed Services Committee, Pete Hegseth reminded all of us that during this time of war, we have the most unqualified, the most unprepared, and the most clownish person ever to serve in that role. Do you think we're winning militarily on the battlefield? It's been an astounding military success. But are we winning the war? Absolutely. Okay, so do you call Iran closing the Strait of Hormuz winning? Well, I would say the blockade that we hold that doesn't allow anything to come in or out of Iranian ports. Always. So, we've blockaded their blockade. So, they blockaded us, and then we blockaded their blockade. That's like saying, tag Garrett. It's Ken Harbaugh with the Midas Touch Network. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth just had a disastrous series of hearings on Capitol Hill, appearing before the House and Senate Armed Services Committees. I spoke with Senator Alyssa Slotkin on Friday about the Senate hearing. If you didn't catch that conversation, the link is below. At the House hearing, a tag team of Democratic combat vets laid into Secretary Hegseth for his astonishing level of incompetence. Leading that charge was Seth Moulton, a decorated Marine. Quickly, on March 13th in a press conference, you said, "We will give them no quarter, no mercy." In order for no quarter or no survivors is a war crime under the Geneva Conventions. You understand that's murder. Do you stand by that statement? The Department of War fights to win, and we ensure that our war fighters have the rules of engagement necessary to be as effectively. You call Democratic members of Congress to be tried for sedition for reminding our troops to follow law. But when you tell them to commit a war crime, you stand by yourself for insinuating the laws that we're giving them are not. I spoke with Congressman Moulton about the war with Iran and about Pete Hegseth's failed leadership of the Pentagon. Unfortunately, with the House still firmly in Republican hands, there's not a lot that Democratic lawmakers can do, at least legislatively, to hold the Department of Defense accountable. What they can do is shine a light on the utter incompetence there so that the American people come November can deliver a new Congress that will do its job. Here's my conversation with Congressman Seth Moulton. Seth, thank you so much for joining us today. Can you bring us up to speed on the state of the war in Iran vis-a-vis Congress? The War Powers Resolution and the statutory requirement that the administration come to you for authorization, and this incredibly, legally innovative end run they are attempting to do around Congress. I mean, it's not innovative. They are flaunting Congress, and they are flaunting the Constitution. They're flaunting the rule of law, and it almost would be funny if there weren't so many lives at stake, because our troops actually depend on their commanders, including the commander-in-chief, follow the same law that they're supposed to follow, the Constitution they swore an oath to. Yeah. Explain the rationale. It's basically resetting the clock. The law says they have 60 days to respond to an imminent threat. That was one of the original elements of the rationale. And then they have to come to you. They're just resetting the clock. That's the argument. Yeah. Right. And there was nothing imminent about the threat. I mean, they've said themselves, Iran has been a threat for 50 years. In fact, it seems that Iran is more of a threat right now thanks to their war, since they have managed to close the Strait of Hormuz. And yet they're trying to say we're not at war. Reminder, a blockade is an act of war. So you can't in the same breath say we're maintaining the blockade and we're not at war. But that's exactly what this administration is doing, trying to pull the wools over wool over the eyes of Congress. And of course, the problem is that Republicans are letting them do it. Hey everyone, it's Ken. Super quick break to remind you that I've got a Substack page. Please consider subscribing for exclusive content and bi-weekly Substack lives. And for the next month, every paid subscription goes towards my upcoming reporting trip to Ukraine. Thanks for the support. The link is below. Slav Ukraine. Are you hearing from folks downrange about the status of morale? It is one thing to be, and I'm a Navy guy, so this is my frame of reference, to be on one of the longest deployments since World War II. We got ships catching on fire. I can understand that. Look, I deployed in the wake of 9/11. Pretty grueling time for a lot of us. And look, my deployment was easy, but I understood why. I understood why we were going back out after having just gotten home. It's another thing altogether to be on the longest deployment since the end of World War II and not have an explanation from your own command, much less your commander-in-chief, about what it's all for. No, I mean, the explanations are shifting all over the place. Most recently, it's to prevent Iran from having a nuclear weapon, which of course every other administration prior to this one has succeeded in doing without starting a war. But then it was regime change. They sort of gave up on that. Actually, they kind of did achieve regime change. They just replaced an 86-year-old in failing health who had fought while against producing a nuclear weapon with a guy in his 50s who's more hardline and justa. In case he wasn't hardline enough, they killed his immediate family. So it's regime change in completely the wrong direction. They said it was about oil. Well, they've managed to double the price of oil, which is great for Iran. They've said it was about ballistic missiles, but they've given so much money to Iran by lifting the oil sanctions on Iran. Like, just pause for a second. We're at war with Iran. They're killing Americans. Trump lifts the oil sanctions off of Iran. They've already made $14 billion off of that. That's enough to buy a lot of ballistic missiles, probably better ones than the ones that they already have. So, I mean, this in every way has just been a losing war. And so this is the saddest part, is that not only should this war never have happened, but Trump and Haygoth are losing it. And having been in Iraq over multiple deployments, having been there when we were doing well, like when we were having counterinsurgency success in Najaf, or when we were successful in the initial invasion, but also having been there when things were getting worse and it felt like we're losing. I cannot imagine that the morale of the troops is very good when it's plainly obvious that we're losing. Yeah, our allies wanted no part of this from the beginning. They weren't briefed on our plans. They have been trying to give us advice since, I guess, the beginning of the Trump administration. And in a fit of pique, an emotional schoolyard tantrum, the president has declared, "We're pulling thousands of troops out of Germany." What is the House Armed Services Committee's view on that? Is there a strategic rationale here, or is our okay? No, when the committee is uniformly against. The chairman of the House Armed Services Committee and the chairman of the Senate Armed Services Committee just released a letter going after the Trump administration, which is so unusual to have Trump Republicans actually find the gonads to go after this administration. But they did over this withdrawal because it's just another gift from Trump to Vladimir Putin. That's what this is. It's no coincidence that this came right after Trump had a 90-minute call with no notes from Vladimir Putin. Can you help us understand what is going on with that relationship? Because by all accounts, it appears the Ukrainians are gaining an edge at the front. They are now able to launch deep strikes inside Russia. There is a growing sense of unease within the Russian leadership establishment and the propagandists. I mean, there are criticisms being leveled about the war, some directly at Putin that we haven't heard in 4 years. Is this our president coming to the rescue of Vladimir Putin? I mean, I've said this before, Ken. Trump is a Russian puppet. He always has been. And that's not just some political attack from Democrats. That's just a fair and honest reading of the situation. A look at history since he was elected to the presidency. No one knows exactly what the story is, but you can't argue against his actions. At every turn, he comes to the rescue of Vladimir Putin. He aids and abets Vladimir Putin. By the way, that's the definition of treason, because Putin is our enemy. And yet this is what Trump continues to do. I mean, from that first time that he said, "I don't believe the CIA, Putin told me so, I trust him," right down to today where he's giving Putin a great gift. We'll just take 500 U.S. troops out of Germany who are there to deter Russia. At least during those early meetings between Putin and Trump when they were getting to know each other. There were adults in the room. There were State Department translators. There were NSC officials. How unusual is it for two heads of state, especially of adversary nations, to be having off-the-books 90-minute conversations like this with absolutely zero accountability to the American people? The only reason it happens is when they have something to hide. It's pretty obvious that Trump wants this hidden. I mean, it was the officials, the adults in the room when he had that infamous phone call with Zelensky and tried to blackmail him, also to benefit Putin, that he got in trouble. That was the basis for his first impeachment. And so, he obviously doesn't want people to know what's going on. Do House Democrats have any leverage at this point to force a war powers vote or bring the administration to heel on the War Powers Resolution of 1973? Are you at the mercy of your Republican colleagues? I mean, we don't have much leverage, and we just lost another vote in the House because an 80-year-old colleague died while in office. So we're down one more. But myself and Jason Crow just put forward another War Powers Resolution to force a vote on this, because we're going to do everything we can, and we're going to be working behind the scenes to try to get a few Republicans to do the right thing, to do what they know is the right thing to do, what they say behind the scenes, but are unwilling to do in public, because they're just afraid of Trump and the MAGA base. Well, thank you, Seth. Keep it up. As discouraging as the overall environment is, it is incredibly heartening to see you and Congressman Crow and Congressman Ryan and the vets on that committee holding Hexeth and the administrations accountable. Thanks for being there. Listen, I'm proud to do it. We're proud to do it, but it's the absolute least we can do for our troops on the front lines. Seth Moulton, thanks. We'll have you back again soon. Thanks, Ken. Want to stay plugged in? Become a subscriber to our Substack at midasplus.com. You'll get daily recaps from Ron Filowski, ad-free episodes of our podcast, and more exclusive content only available at midasplus.com.